So use just a general outline for the presentation. Talk about the symptoms, and then how you can narrow that down with a diagnosis to the proper recovery steps. So some of the symptoms are the computer won't boot, it's slow generally,
Nice icon.
or you can hear a lot of clicking and scratching noises. Sometimes you'll see strange error messages about certain operating system files not being able to be found. Some other indicators would be like physical damage to the computer, so if they quite obviously dropped it, there's a higher chance that there's some hard drive problems. Unfortunately, those symptoms could come from a number of things. So these are kind of the general possible problems and the tools used to diagnose them. Is anyone unclear about what any of these are? I can go into more depth. Otherwise, I'll just focus in on these steps, the best steps for determining if it's a hard drive problem.
Just in case for people on the video, Jeremy, could you just briefly go through each one in case there would be somebody with a question?
Okay, sure. So in the case of a virus, you're more likely to see the operating system errors or general slowness. And so in the case of a Windows machine, we usually run Malwarebytes anti-malware first. For a Mac, we would run Clam antivirus. If it's a power management issue, this is really only an issue on Macs. The system management controller isn't sending the proper amount of power to the hard drive to get it to spin up, and then the computer can't read it and it won't boot. And it's a simple procedure to reset the SMC on a Mac. There's sometimes the BIOS settings get out of whack on a PC, and so it's not set up to read the hard drive with the proper protocol, and you can change that. There could always just be a problem with how the operating system is installed, and the best way to determine if that's the problem is by eliminating the other possibilities. And then there's the possibility of the file system, which is how the data is stored on the hard drive. It can be corrupt, or like the descriptors for the file system could be damaged. And Windows machines have a program called CheckDisk, which will fix the Windows file system. And on Macs and Linux machines, you would use FSCK, which is a file system check. Or in a Mac, you would just use disk utility, which runs an FSCK in the background. If it's possibly a memory issue, it again won't boot or might crash randomly. And you can either try removing one of the RAM sticks if they're readily accessible and testing the computer with one at a time, or you can run a mem test that's usually in the system menu. And then if it is a problem with the hard drive, you could check to see either using the Mac disk utility for Mac or using Viva, which is on our bootable flash drives. So if you have a Mac and you see the flashing folder icon and you want to deal with it as quickly as possible, the first thing you would want to do is try resetting the SMC. If it's just a problem with the system management controller, if you press and hold Control, Option, Shift, and Escape while pressing and holding the power button for a few seconds and then let go, that'll reset the SMC, and if that was the only problem, you'll know immediately, and then you can give the customer their computer back right away. From there, you should try target disk mode using the FireWire cable and connect it to the iMac and back. And you boot to that by holding T as soon as you turn the computer on. And there's about half the time where we have this problem, it's because the SATA cable, which is what connects the hard drive to the motherboard, is bad. And if this is the case, it just won't show up at all on the iMac. And if it does show up, you can run disk utility, and that'll tell you if there's problems with the hard drive, and if it thinks there are problems, it'll tell you to back up your data. Alternatively, you can try running Disk Warrior, and a lot of times that'll fix other boot issues. And if you get to a point where disk utility says nothing's wrong, but disk warrior also says nothing's wrong, you can try running Viva, which is on the CDs and bootable flash drives. And that'll run through the hard drive. And if that comes back clean, then you know it's probably an issue with the operating system. And it would be a good idea to reinstall. Otherwise, it'll start remapping errors on the hard drive. And it gets to a point where it's not remapping them, or if it's trying to remap every single sector, then you probably want to pull the hard drive and back it up as soon as possible. And on the PC, I guess a good first bet, if you think it's hard drive trouble, is to run Viva. Just because any other tool also takes a large amount of time. And if it's a failing hard drive, you want to know as soon as possible. And then you have various options for recovering the data once you determine that the hard drive's failing. So if you can get it connect in target disk mode, and disk utility says it's bad, but you can still mount the drive on the iMac, then it might be a good idea to use MegaCP to copy their user's folder onto the backup server. Otherwise, if it either won't mount or the otherwise if it won't mount, you'll need to boot to PartyMagic. And on a Mac, you generally want to use a CD. You can try using a plop CD, of which we have a few in back, to tell it to boot to a USB, but that often doesn't work anyway, and you might as well just boot from one of the marked CDs. And then a lot of times you'll see, on Macs and on some PCs, when PartyMagic tries to boot, it'll try to use an open source NVIDIA driver, which isn't completely perfect, and so some of the NVIDIA cards won't work with it, and you'll just get a black screen. And if that's the case, when you select PartyMagic, you'll need to hit Tab before it starts booting, and put in these parameters: no mode set, next driver equals Visa. And that gives it just a more basic video driver that's compatible with all cards, and it disables some problems that, or it disables a feature of the kernel that some of the graphics cards have trouble with. And now I'll show you how to actually use PhotoRec. Unfortunately, our only bootable flash drive is in use, so you'll have to pretend this is PartyMagic. I can still show you PhotoRec though. So, you'll see something similar to this when you try to boot PartyMagic, and if you have the case where it is where it's only booting to a black screen, you would hit Tab. In this case, I have to hit E, and then you'd see a bunch of things like this. And at the very end, you would just hit no mode set and X driver equals Visa, and that's not actually the right place to put it on this computer.
It's no mode ST, right, or set?
No, that's set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's with ST in the slide too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Okay. Yeah, it's no mode set. And so then you would hit enter to boot,
Makes a
and
lot.
it would pull up PartyMagic, which can take a while to boot. And now we have a tiny screen for some reason. Let's fix that. What resolution can this go up to?
That one, the biggest one.
1080p.
Maybe that was too big. Okay.
Okay. Oh, except now I need to make this one bigger too.
Maybe we should hit the lights.
Yeah, you hit the lights. Camera flash.
Should I hit all the switches?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
I don't think it's this one. It's bigger. Okay, so you would, in Party Magic, you would open a terminal. It would give you the mark menu, and it would give you the various options for what to do. The easiest thing to do would first be connect to STS server for full menu, and then it would ask you for the password, and that'll just mount the backup server for you. In case you don't feel like doing that, the proper command would be mount.cifs STS backup.boostal.edu/backups -o for options and user equals STS admin. Otherwise, it'll try to log you in with the username Party Magic, and that just won't work. And then it'll ask you for a password. I neither want to nor can connect to the STS backup server here. Oh, actually, that wasn't the correct syntax. So you would also need to give it a folder name, so here is a folder. And so then you would mount it to here's a folder. And then once you do that, you can go back to just the regular command line if you use the mark menu, and you want to navigate to the backups folder, which I don't have. It would be cd/media/sts backups, and you would make a directory with mkdir, and you would want to call it student name. Yes, student name. Student name, and the ticket number, and date and stuff. And then you would again want to change that directory before running Party Magic. And so once you're in the directory that you want to copy the files to, then you can run photorec. And it'll run this route automatically on the normal machines, or in Party Magic. So you won't have to do this. And you'll see a list of the available drives. Since I only have one partition, it's only showing up one. If there are multiple and you only want to back up the proper partition, then you would, and you don't know which one you want, you can open gparted, and that'll just be down in the Party Magic menu, and you can click and go pull up gparted, and it'll show you the names of all of the drives. And so once you decided which drive you wanted to back up, or if you wanted to get the whole thing, you just start with the /SDA without a number after it. And then if it's a Mac, you want the EFI GPT. Otherwise, you probably want Intel. I haven't seen a PC that has an EFI partition table. And then you would want to again search the disk for the partitions, which I didn't find. And then if it's a Linux machine, you'll choose this. Otherwise, you want other. So for both a Mac or a PC, you want to hit other. And then from here, you can navigate. If you didn't choose the proper folder, you can navigate to it. So dot being current directory and dot being previous. So if I do this, then you can see like what's in my home folder. And we wanted student name. And then, so then once you're in the proper directory, which you should already be, you want to go to dot and hit enter. I think it'll tell you to hit like C to start. And it's complaining about that right now because I'd be backing up to the same hard drive. And so then the backup would start. And it will give you an estimate of how long it's been running and how much time is remaining. and you can completely ignore that because after about 10 minutes in, they'll say maybe about 6 hours have passed, and you'll have a few thousand left to go. And then it should finish backing up to the server. And then once you're done, on the Windows machine, it's labeled the toaster machine 9001. You can, there's a program called PhotoRec Sorter saved on the desktop. If you navigate to the backup folder and paste PhotoRec Sorter into there and run it, it'll sort the files by extension. Since PhotoRec ignores the master file table, which has the names of the files, so you can't really sort by file name or folder. So that's the best way we can get the files back to the student.
But you have to copy PhotoRec sorter into the PhotoRec like directory where you PhotoRec.
Yeah, so you copy it to the directory that you've backed up to. Otherwise, it'll try to sort
I always
the
forget that.
desktop. Any questions? This went a little bit shorter than I expected. I was hoping I'd be able to go through like the full parted magic menu, but we don't have any bootable flash drives available.
Do we not have part of menu and CD?
I don't have a CD drive. I guess I could boot this
You could boot
if
that
you
up.
want to see that.
To
I'm also not sure.
the display
Yeah, because like
part of that.
this one will work with anything just because the motherboard's nice. But do you want to try it?
It's up to you.
Okay, I'll go grab a CD real quick.
Grab some pizza if you like.
Thanks.
Hot off the oven. We have hamburger. I think this is, well, one's hamburger, one's sausage. Good luck.
I knew that was
Oh,
going to.
sorry.
It's all good. I didn't RSVP,
Okay, then.
so it's really my fault.
One hamburger,
It's not yours.
one extra sauce.
One hamburger, one animal mix.
Then,
Right.
You know what? I'll go get some napkins. That's a good idea.
Man,
We're having a little break, Jeremy.
it's fast.
Okay.
Hamburger and sausage
Hamburgers.
for the vegetarian.
I'll just meditate.
Smell it. Smell it.
I don't know what it is. Has the smell.
He's above smell.
What was your reasoning behind your what is your individual reason for being vegetarian?
There's four.
Never mind, I heard that. I've heard
So in case anyone doesn't know, this is the disc you want to use. There might be more. They all say Mark Boot CD on them.
Here you go. Oh, you guys are acquainted. Nice and neat.
Nothing.
Somebody looking for me?
How do you even break this?
Yes.
Oh.
It's just hamburger.
Wait, is that thin crust Domino's?
Yes, it is.
People eat that. Is that good?